the American public doesn't want this weaponization bill. A very small percentage, other than the people who were actually indicted, charged, convicted of rioting, insurrection, all those other things, outside of the people who were in the Trump orbit, nobody wants this. I mean, it's a giveaway to people who assaulted police officers, point blank, period. There's no excuse. There's nothing you can do to circumvent that.
In today's video, Bakari Sellers goes nuclear on Jason Rantz on CNN NewsNight as they clash over Donald Trump, military transparency, immigration, and Dr. Anthony Fauci. As Jason Rantz defends the administration, Bakari Sellers pushes back with facts that challenge the MAGA narrative. So let's dive in and watch how Bakari Sellers shuts down Jason Rantz on CNN NewsNight.
Of saying, oh, okay, we've reached the threshold at which we don't have to notify Congress. So let's just pretend like we're going to start a new conflict. That, I think, seems to insult the intelligence of the American people who know exactly what's going on.
We've seen the Pentagon multiple times actually go through and set up, after we've gone through several different kinds of border conflicts, after certain kinds of observations and then strikes, retaliations, recategorize both casualties on the injury side and then those who have died. We've seen this before, again, all the way dating back to the Korean and the Vietnam Wars, in which we've seen the Department of Defense at the time.
I've never seen Department of Defense recategorize injuries or deaths from an operation. I've never seen that. And I was at the Pentagon.
They've done so multiple times. Indeed, in the Obama administration, they recategorized the Syrian strikes multiple times.
That strikes, like deaths from a strike versus an entire operation is very different. This was an operation. This is a war. How do you explain how these 4 people died?
I'd like you to go back to asking very clearly, why didn't you know, if you're Miss Pentagon, why don't you know the history of actually recategorizing strikes?
But hold on, how did these 4 people die?
Again, they were struck by Iranian forces.
From the war?
From, yes, the retaliation from the Iranians.
Okay, so it's from the war. Great.
Yeah, I mean,
that seems simple enough.
I don't even know why you would argue otherwise. Because it's the same conflict. It is definitely the same conflict. And I don't know. I mean, they initially tried to say this was a software glitch, and then they created a whole different place to put these names. Why?
I mean, look, what matters is that President Trump has honored these families, and I'm not shocked to hear that there's issues with government websites. Whether or not it was a purposeful obfuscation, I think remains to be seen.
Well, but I think at this point we know that
they changed the classification.
What I would
we
say,
know that this is not. I mean, the names came down. They claimed it was an accident. That's some kind of glitch. But then they did not restore them to where they should be. They put them in a different place.
Right. So I'd like to see.
That's not a tech issue.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that restored. I think we need to have transparency around what's going on. I think one situation that, frankly, where we saw the government was certainly obfuscating, didn't have any transparency, was Anthony Fauci, who were getting his diaries today, where he was purposely obfuscating about
Anthony Fauci.
That's actually something where we know he was purposely obfuscating.
Lydia, we're sitting here talking about Americans who were killed in theater, okay, as a result of a war. We are not going to pivot to Anthony Fauci's diaries. That's a different conversation.
You're saying that
this
is a purposeful obfuscation. We don't know that it was a purposeful obfuscation.
That we learned this weekend,
it was.
Isaiah, the other thing we learned this weekend is that the president has been warned by his own Defense Department, by his own vice president, that we are running low on munitions stockpiles. I'm going to play, this is Mike Walls, the ambassador to the United Nations, who was asked about this. And just listen carefully to how he explains whether this is true or not.
This highlights why transparency matters more than political spin, especially when military casualties are involved. When records about wounded or fallen service members are changed, moved, or explained away with vague technical excuses, people naturally start asking questions. That isn't about scoring political points. It's about respecting the troops and the families who sacrifice the most. Public trust depends on accurate information, particularly during military operations. The same principle applies to government accountability. If officials expect Americans to trust their decisions on national security, they also have to be willing to provide clear explanations when mistakes happen. History has shown that attempts to downplay or delay information during conflicts often backfire. From Vietnam to more recent wars, public confidence erodes when transparency is replaced with conflicting narratives. The discussion about military stockpiles also deserves serious attention. Defense experts have warned for years that modern conflicts consume weapons and ammunition far faster than many governments anticipate. Acknowledging logistical challenges isn't a sign of weakness. It's how responsible governments prepare for future threats. Pretending everything is fine only makes long-term planning more difficult. Finally, changing the subject whenever uncomfortable questions arise doesn't answer the concerns people already have. Americans can care about multiple issues at once, but when the topic is military casualties and national security, those questions deserve direct answers instead of political distractions. Accountability should never depend on which party controls the White House. If leaders expect the public to trust them during moments of crisis, they have to earn that trust through honesty, consistency, and a willingness to explain their decisions, even when those explanations are politically inconvenient.
Is America backing away from a larger military attack because its military stockpile has been depleted?
Well, look, we have to take a step back here in that a lot of stockpiles were depleted, not only from what we gave Ukraine over the last however many years, 4 or 5 years, and the administration inherited, the Secretary Hegseth inherited a depleted situation.
But you acknowledge
I want to be clear.
Do you acknowledge they're depleted, though, at this moment?
I want to be crystal clear. The U.S. military, and I've verified this every which way, has everything that it needs to conduct this campaign as effectively as it needs to be.
A tough job he's got there, because he seems to want to blame the previous administration for depletions and then claim that there are none.
I mean, it's just the standard playbook for them. It's just Biden derangement syndrome. It's really all they have at this point, because ultimately we understand that what was given to Ukraine was primarily for ground warfare. When it comes to this situation, I mean, he just said a couple weeks ago that the military had everything they needed to continue and to carry out these strikes. That's what he said. So it's amazing how when this comes down to where we are today, they change their tune. It's not really shocking because this is what they do.
So you can't have it both ways. Are we depleted or aren't we depleted? I want your opinion on that.
The point is that
no, answer the question. Answer it. Do you think we're depleted or not?
A couple weeks ago that we had everything we needed to carry out these strikes.
Can you answer the question?
So did he lie? Did he lie?
I'm asking you the question.
Did he lie? What do you think?
It matters. I don't believe that the United States.
The reporting is that the president was warned by the Defense Department and by his own vice president that if they continued with a larger war campaign, which he has the option to do, that would dangerously deplete our munitions. So, and I've seen, actually, rather than a lot of people saying this is not true, I've seen a lot of conservatives saying, who leaked this? Which seems to imply that they believe it is true.
I do not believe that the United States is in a position right now where we're not able to continue interceptions. There's two kinds of core munitions. But if we're going to look at this right here, when you're looking interception or positive action.
That's just the way you're characterizing it is not entirely accurate. I think there has been, I think the United States military, to your point, will do everything necessary to conduct an operation. But what you are not including here is that they will pull stocks from other combatant commands because our stockpiles are so depleted.
Why are our stockpiles depleted to this level? Do you think
our
that
stockpiles
a small
are depleted
operation
to this level,
like this
you think
was
this
enough
is
to
small?
deplete? You think this is enough to deplete the entire U.S. stockpile?
No. You just said interceptors. How long do those take to make?
That's an excellent question. How long do those take to make?
They take 2 years.
Yes, they do.
And do you know how many we've gone through in this war?
By all means. Do you have that
No,
data
go ahead.
point?
You tell me.
I'm asking you to give me the
every
data
answer.
point.
What we have done is we have depleted very, very expensive munitions to shoot down very inexpensive drones, like $30,000 to $40,000 drones.
And to Walt's point, why did we not have a larger supply of interceptor missiles? If this isn't enough to take on Iran, then what about Russia or China?
We're not giving the type of interceptor missiles that we use on the battlefield to Ukraine.
One thing that stood out in this is how easy it is to throw around talking points while ignoring the bigger picture. National security isn't just about sounding tough on television. It's about making decisions based on accurate information and long-term planning. Military readiness depends on transparent reporting, realistic assessments of stockpiles, and honest communication with both Congress and the public. If officials give conflicting explanations about whether supplies are sufficient, people naturally start asking questions. The same goes for support for Ukraine. Much of the equipment sent there was designed for a different type of warfare than what the US would use in a direct conflict elsewhere. Defense experts have repeatedly noted that America's industrial base can replenish key weapon systems, but only if procurement is managed effectively instead of becoming another political talking point. That's a planning issue, not a reason to rewrite history. Transparency also matters when discussing casualties or military records. Families of service members deserve clear, accurate information without confusion or shifting explanations. Trust in government institutions depends on accountability, especially during military operations. What makes this discussion important is that national defense shouldn't become another partisan scoreboard. Serious issues like force readiness, logistics, and military strategy deserve evidence-based debate rather than blame shifting. When leaders spend more time pointing fingers than explaining solutions, it becomes harder for Americans to know what's actually happening. Ultimately, credibility is built through consistency, not slogans, and voters are justified in expecting straightforward answers when the stakes involve both national security and the lives of U.S. service members.
It's the president. It's the president who does not want to move forward with this.
I mean, it's the president doing what he does often, which is prioritizing Donald Trump. I don't think there's anybody who's seen this president act in a way over the past 10 years since he came down that golden escalator at Trump Tower, who's done anything in an interest that was other than himself and his family. This should be a simple look. The American public doesn't want this weaponization bill. A very small percentage, other than the people who were actually indicted, charged, convicted of rioting, insurrection, all those other things, outside of the people who were in the Trump orbit, nobody wants this. I mean, it's a giveaway to people who assaulted police officers, point blank, period. There's no excuse. There's nothing you can do to circumvent that. Now, on the IRS settlement, the reason that Todd Blanche can't really work around it is he's the one who drafted the settlement. He's the one who signed off on these different elements that are going into it. So backing off that is very difficult for him. And the president himself knows that, going forward, there will be accountability. There will be accountability for Donald Trump, his children, and the people who have been profiteering off their service in the White House. You can guarantee that.
Well, to be clear, Trump and the family right now, at least as it relates to the IRS, they're the victims. They were the victims here. They illegally released their tax documents. And I understand why the president comes from the position, or his family is coming from the position, that they want to make sure that they can do everything that they can that legally they can get away with. In the future, they're not going to be subject to another IRS or a rogue, agent within the IRS who will go ahead and target them again. I understand that position. That is separate, I think, from the weaponization fund, which I generally agree with you. It's not a Jan 6 weaponization fund, but it is written in a way that was too broad. And I do think that was a mistake from this White House. But also, keep in mind, you've got two senators here who are holding this entire thing hostage while also acknowledging they don't have a problem with Todd Blanche, that this is not Blanche holding anything up, and yet they're the ones who are holding him up to become the next attorney general.
Yeah, but the other issue, the president is petty. So this is kind of like the state of what politics are, and especially in the Republican Party. So for them to try to, or for any Republican to criticize this, or anybody, period, as retaliation, well, we see a lot of that in our American political structure. The other part I'll say about this that is utterly kind of disturbing on a macro level is that to a lot of people, much like you said, Bakari, this weaponization fund is a slap in the face to a lot of people, especially to those who serve and protect us. Then you have, in general, just the blatant corruption of Donald Trump and his entire family. And you could say that this is to protect him in case somebody decides somewhere down the line, we're going to go after Donald Trump because of some level of personal retaliation. But we know it's not about that. It's about,
what was it about to release illegally his tax
Listen,
documents?
I'm not disagreeing that wasn't illegal. I'm not saying that should have
But
stood.
I'm just saying he's the victim.
But if
jury
you're
to
thinking
suggest
that this is
he
just
couldn't
about
become a victim again in the
him
future
wanting to
is naive.
protect himself from further things, it's not. It's protecting himself from the blatant corruption
Yeah.
that he actively involves himself in, him and his family, all the time.
This highlights a bigger issue than just one proposal or one legal fight. Public office is supposed to serve the country, not reward political allies. When people convicted for attacking police officers become associated with compensation proposals, it's reasonable for voters to question whether accountability is being applied consistently. Supporting law enforcement shouldn't depend on whether the offenders share your political views. There's also the broader concern about ethics in government. Transparency organizations have repeatedly warned that public trust declines when leaders appear to blur the line between official power and personal interests. Whether it's business ventures, family involvement, or legal decisions, even the appearance of favoritism can damage confidence in public institutions. That's why strong ethics rules exist in the first place. The same principle applies to government agencies. If someone believes an agency acted improperly, there are already legal avenues to challenge those actions through the courts. Creating broad political funds tied to claims of weaponization risks turning future administrations into cycles of retaliation instead of focusing on governing. That kind of precedent can easily be used by either party, and that's not healthy for democracy. Meanwhile, voters consistently rank everyday concerns like healthcare costs, housing, wages, and inflation above partisan political fights. Polling over the past several years has repeatedly shown that Americans want elected officials spending more time solving practical problems than revisiting old political grievances. Every hour Congress spends debating loyalty tests or political revenge is time not spent addressing issues families actually feel every day. In the end, stable institutions, equal accountability under the law, and a focus on real economic challenges are what strengthen public trust, not policies that risk rewarding political loyalty over the public interest. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.